Which modern countries was established and formed by Sweden? Today, Sweden is a not very powerful country with its military ranking getting lower each year. But as many of you know, Sweden was once a powerful country, and they were able to win almost any fight thanks to their very modern technology. Which raises the question, did Sweden ever form a country, and which country in that case? Well, the most right answer would be simply no. Even though Sweden has successfully established some countries over the years, none has lasted till the modern day. Kind of. If you want a more in-depth answer to this question, we would have to trace back time all the way to the Vikings era. You may recognize the Vikings as the Nordic people who once ruled the sea. Although that is right, it wasn't completely right, as Swedish vanguards and varners, also a form of Vikings, were more interesting in expanding eastwards. They stopped their expansion when they bordered much more powerful nations like Byzantium, Seljuk, and Khorasan. What does this have to do with which nations Sweden have formed, you may find yourself asking? Well, some Slavic tribes in modern Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia asked the Swedish vanguards and varners if they could gain control of their lands, as their country was way too unstable and needed a better regime as Sweden, since they were the strongest form of civilization in East Europe at this time. The Swedish vanguards and varners accepted the request and formed the vassal state of Kievan Rus. Kievan coming from the city of Kiev and Rus coming from the ones who rode, as that was what the Slavic people called the Swedes. Later, Christianity found its way to Sweden, and Sweden's Vikings colonial empire fell. So did the Kievan Rus. The leftover kingdoms of the Kievan Rus formed a union to keep their power and influence. They adopted something later known as the Vechi system, meaning that each kingdom had its king, and the head king of the kingdom rotated every decade. Later, the kingdoms got unsure on who would become the head king of the Union, and war broke out. Before the war got to finish, Genghis Khan's army had already found out about the Kievan Rus and were able to conquer all of their lands. Today, the legal successor state of the Kievan Rus is Russia. But some would even argue that Ukraine and Belarus could be the successors. But either way, now you could agree with me that Sweden, in some way or another, formed Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. And if you really want to get into this, you could say that Sweden also formed Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, as they were the nations Russia formed. But that's where I would disagree, though. But if you want to avoid beef with nationalists in TikTok, I would consider not mentioning that Sweden formed Russia, because that could piss some people off. Anyways, goodbye.